Okay, guys, welcome back to part 2 of Close Encounters of the Hoax Kind, where we are looking at the new world order, alien agenda, proposed hoax, alien invasion, false flag psychological operation that could well be on the cards for a not so distant future if all the seeding and implantation of the thoughts surrounding the propaganda of alien agenda are to be believed. But anyway, we are going to continue from where we left off yesterday with the most basic form of mind control is repetition. And over the decades and years since the start of the 20th century and the 21st century, there has never been an era that hasn't been without some reference to alien agenda, either in mainstream entertainment or mainstream news feeds and related articles. So without further ado, guys, let's continue to scroll down, and as you can see there, the greatest form of mind control is repetition. Let me just zoom in a little bit for those of you there. I want to take a closer look at some of the items displayed within that meme. And let's go on, and you can see what the author is doing here. Once again, the most basic form of mind control is repetition. The greatest form of mind control is repetition. And once again, the most basic form of mind control is repetition. So I'm pretty sure you're picking up the picture and seeing the clues for yourself. So what is this brain-numbing propaganda for then? And there's a picture there of somebody wondering, although you can't see it, I'm sure. But let's start to put the pieces together. And the New World Agenda is where we start. And of course, the New World Agenda is for a one world government, one race, one currency, one bank, one religion, one language, yada yada, whoop-de-woo, ray-tay-tay. If it is singularity related, the New World Order Agenda is all about this. But how would they implement a new world order without going down the aggressive route? Maybe they could create an outside extraterrestrial aggressor that could come and pose our threat that would result in us needing a global government to take care of us once the alien threat has been eradicated. But listen to this speech by George Bush Sr. given on September the 11th, 1991, which is coincidentally 10 years prior to the events of a certain Tuesday morning on 9/11/2001, to the exact day. Unfortunately, the video is unable to watch here on this platform, but don't worry, guys, I found a version of it to show you of my own, which we will now look at now.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law. Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge. Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is a very real prospect of a new world order.
The Council on Foreign Relations, known as the CFR, an organization publicly sworn to destroy American national sovereignty and usher in a tyrannical world police state, could not contain their glee on September 12th, the day after the tragic attack. They announced their new world order.
There is a chance the President of the United States can use this disaster to carry out what his father, a phrase his father used, I think, only once, and hasn't been used since, and that is a new world order.
There you you go. That was George Bush Sr. on September 11th, 1991. And here is a retort of what he just said. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. A world where the roar of law and not of law of the jungle governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will have a new chance at this new world order. An order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and the vision of the UN's founders. You might be thinking, if this totalitarian world police state is as bad as it's made out to be, then no one would accept it, right? Excuse me. Well, allow me to reiterate the words of David Rockefeller. We saw this yesterday. All we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the new world order. And is that right major crisis the alien invasion? As we are currently living under one major crisis, which is the COVIDian era that we are now living in. The new normal, as it says, is the new normal, part of the new world order agenda and narrative. And although we are facing a major global crisis under the guise of COVID-19, it isn't a threat that threatens us all, unlike an alien invasion, because many people are on the fence. Some believe that COVID-19 is real, some people believe that it isn't real and is just a scam pandemic in order to obtain more totalitarian control over society. So let me show you. Where did I miss something? So what sort of crisis is he talking about? And as I just digressed a little bit, I mentioned that in particular COVID is one crisis, and in the midst of this major crisis, are we going to see an even more larger major crisis of a global scale that would involve aliens? So let me show you what this is what the author of this article is saying. He is going to show you. We know, based on the material presented to you in posts 16 to 22, that the idea of extraterrestrials is a complete lie. And he's making reference to previous posts that he has made, not posts that I have made. And as I said, the hoax alien invasion, I believe, would be a lie. Extraterrestrial invasion. I'm not suggesting that extraterrestrials in general are a lie. There could quite possibly be other forms of life in this incredibly large and extensive universe that we only exist in a very, very tiny part of it. It could indeed very well be that we are living in a simulated reality computer simulation. No globe, no outer space, no extraterrestrials, no extraterrestrial places, no extraterrestrials. Yet despite that, as you have seen above, the elite desperately want you to believe that aliens exist, and we did see yesterday some evidence from former presidents. Unfortunately, some of that material is unavailable to watch now. Reason why they have taken that content off of YouTube for your viewing pleasure is questionable, but they might be because they do deter you away from the official narrative and maybe towards a future psyop in the happening. And how they use TV movies, TV shows, speeches, songs, advertising, etc., etc., to socially condition us to believe in aliens, and not just aliens. They socially condition us to believe in anything they tell us, using the exact same above mentioned methodologies and devices of deliverance. But nevertheless, notice that there is a common narrative in many alien movies, a narrative that is conditioning us to eventually unite under a world government. And that's what I'm saying. Is this the perfect major crisis to usher in a one world order? My goodness, we can't unite as a globe to sort out our domestic differences, but my goodness, when we have extraterrestrial threats to humanity, then maybe humanity can put aside its differences to concentrate efforts on that outside threat. So aliens in threatened the world is the point one of the narrative. Part two would be everybody panics. Countries turn to the United Nations, the one world government. The United Nations one world government saves the day. Everybody lives happily ever after in a tyrannical world police state. Because obviously once the United Nations would be given possibly emergency powers and the status of temporary global government to protect the globe from the alien invaders, then perhaps they would be a little bit unwilling to relinquish that power and status, and therefore we would be in their totalitarian clutches. But speaking of the UN, did you know that they have already started appointing interstellar diplomats? Diplomats that will delve in interstellar relations, I'm guessing. That is despite the fact, as Michio Kaku said earlier, we have yet to find any civilization in space. So let's have a little look at this video.
Seen this movie? United States Marine Corps. I'm sorry, Captain. It's a restricted area. I can't let you pass without clearance. Okay. Come here. You want to see my clearance? Maybe I'll just leave this here with you. Let him pass. Let him pass.
Will Smith, Independence Day, a movie about aliens invading Earth. But now the United Nations is getting ready for a contact with aliens from outer space. This is Moslin Othman. She's out of Malaysia. She will be planet Earth's first interstellar diplomat. And Michio Kaku is a theoretical physics professor, also host of the Science Channel series, Sci-Fi Science Physics of the Impossible, which is doing great, by the way. How are you doing, by the way?
Very good.
Nice to see you, Michio. And I don't know, is this a goofy idea? Is this a serious idea? What the world is the UN doing involved in this?
Well, don't expect flying saucers to land on the White House lawn anytime soon announcing, "Take me to your leader." It sounds like a goofball idea, but here's the rationale. Sometime later this year, maybe early next year, astronomers will announce that we have discovered Earth-like twins in outer space, and when we gaze out the night sky, somebody may be gazing back at us.
So there you go. Interesting ambassadors from the US, UN for interstellar relations. So again, this is supporting and propagating the agenda of the narrative of an alien agenda. Are they going to be coming anytime soon? Are they going to demand to be taken to our leader as, again, one of the programmatics in many of the sci-fi pieces of fiction that have led us to believe in extraterrestrial alien invasions, alien beings, such forth? That is a common phrase among them. Take me to your leader. Some people have even may be aware of the parody of that. Take me to your dealer. And imagine what would happen if we did get a bunch of extraterrestrials high on marijuana. And sorry if you can hear that noise in the background. It is my roommate getting a little vociferous on the telephone with someone. But now you might be wondering how these pesky Freemasons are going to fool the entire world into accepting the New World Order. And there is a character from Stargate saying indeed. He's wondering why and how they are going to do this. To start to figure out that, let's start with a look at Werner von Braun. And Werner von Braun warning was, you may recall, from a previous post that the author made that we haven't seen, but Werner von Braun was a German, later American aerospace engineer. He was part of the paperclip project that brought some of the National Socialist scientists to the United States of America as the Allied forces cherry-picked their favorite Nazi war criminals for their own nefarious purposes. But he was the individual who was the architect and engineer of the V2 rocket that the Nazis used to launch attacks upon the United Kingdom during World War II. And he also developed the Saturn V for the United States. He was one of the leading figures in the development of rocket technology in Nazi Germany, where he was a member of the Nazi Party and the SS. Following WW2, he was moved to the United States along with about 1,500 other scientists, technicians, and engineers as part of Operation Paperclip, which I just mentioned, where he developed the NASA rockets that launched the United States' first space satellite, Explorer 1, and the, in brackets, fake Apollo program manned lunar landings. There is a picture of him and a cute little emoji. I'm pretty sure our Cajun agent will love that little emoji there. But later in his life, von Braun became a vice president at Fairchild Industries, a company specializing in space and electronics products. At Fairchild, he worked with Carol Rosin, a leading engineer consultant within their space and missile defense from 74 until his death in 77, the year Star Wars come out. Excuse me there. Carol Rosin gave testimony about some of the things von Braun told her. In Carol Rosin's testimony, which you can listen to here, we're not going to, but she states the following. When I was a corporate manager at Fairchild Industries from 74 through 77, I met the late Dr. Werner von Braun. At that time, von Braun was dying of cancer, but he assured me that he would live a few more years to tell me about the game that was being played. That same being the effort to weaponize space to control the Earth from space and space itself. And bear in mind, guys, we recently were introduced to Space Force, the United States military wing and division that specializes in space defense. And the funniest one of all was that what he called aliens extraterrestrials, that would be the final scare. And over and over and over during 4 years that I knew him and was giving speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And is the alien agenda the last card of the New World Order agenda to bring in the One World Order, the totalitarian One World government that will rule over us and keep us safe and secure from alien threats while enforcing a sustainable development society that we can all be harmonious and peaceful living in tyranny. But remember, Carol, last card is the alien card. We are going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens, and all of it is a lie. Is Space Force a lie? Are all these things that will be launching out all part of the hoax and the deception? Things like SpaceX, the satellite trains, all these 5G technology and such forth. Is this all going to be used to fuel and project the alien invasion hoax? First of all, back to the article, note that in her testimony, she was given at the Sirens disclosure hearing in the National Press Club that we discussed in part 1 yesterday as this Close Encounters of the Hoax Kind Reality Decoded feature presentation. This is, of course, part 2, following on from where we left off yesterday. So we need to take it with a pinch of salt. And we looked yesterday how the National Press Club are indeed a Freemasonic agency that is designed to perpetuate deceit and control over the masses. The spin she is putting on her narrative is very much in line with the narrative that the Sirius disclosure propagates, which is that aliens are real and benevolent, i.e. friendly. The government is keeping it a secret. Corrupt government officials who want power and control will blame hostile aliens for having to have space weapons. The truth, as we know it from material presented in earlier posts, is that neither space nor alien exists, and this is the thoughts and opinions of the author, not necessarily the thoughts and opinions of myself, although some of the thoughts and opinions do match that of the author, in particular the alien agenda, which we are discussing now. and they, where are we? In earlier posts, that's neither space or alien exists, and the problem goes well beyond just government officials. Dr. Stephen Greer of Serious Disclosure will never disclose that to the public in his capacity as a gatekeeper, though given that he is friends with the Illuminati bigwigs like Lawrence Rockefeller and the Clintons, and as I said, he's very, very prominent in the propaganda concerning disclosure and the alien presence, but as I said, he doesn't mention some of the governments that are keeping this secret. But nonetheless, Carol Rosin's words are strongly indicative that the elite have space weapons and will use them in some sort of alien deception. Whoosh with their heat ray, the quote from War of the Worlds. With that in mind, let's look at what space weapons she could be talking about. Before we do that, allow me to point out something that the readers might find intriguing. This is Werner von Braun's gravestone. As you can see, his parting message to the worms was Psalm 19:1, 9:11, there for you guys, which says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament streweth his handiwork." Make of that what you will. That's a rather odd parting message for the world's most famous rocket scientist to leave. I mean, he was a scientist, and scientists are not supposed to believe in religion. And he shot rockets into space, right? Right? Yeah, right. Anyways, let's take a look at some space weapons. Did somebody say weapons? That guy's tooled up to the max with some pretty sexy armaments. Some of you might be drooling over if you're into such things. But space weapons. There is tons of technology that is being hidden and only leaked to the public, according to what suits the greater New World Order agenda. Most corporations will even admit to keeping technology off the market for business reasons, even if that technology could help mankind. It's just good business, supposedly. Please keep the words of Arthur C. Clarke, the science fiction writer who dreamed up the concept of a satellite, in mind as you continue reading below. Let me zoom in on that. The sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Sorry if I made a mess of that, but basically he's saying that any advanced technology that we are unaware of will be indistinguishable from magic, or maybe indistinguishable from alien technology, if you get what I'm saying. If it's future technology that has been hidden from society that belongs to Earth based agencies, then it might indeed appear as alien if we've never seen it before. But there are two topics we will cover here. The first of which is anti-gravity craft, UFOs. The public understanding of UFOs and flying saucers is riddled with confusion, skepticism, and mystery. And here are some newspaper cullings about UFOs and flying saucers for your enjoyment. But there are actually some very simple and logical explanations to them. First off, if you've seen this is a previous article of the author, but we have had a little look at Tesla's technology in some of the things that he was developing over 100 years ago that might even seem far advanced by today's standards of technology if some of this was revealed to the public. And don't forget, he also claimed to have experienced time travel of sorts. But in the words of Nikola Tesla on gravity, a good example for such is an interaction becomes apparent in gravitation, which should rather be named universal compression. I think the material bodies do not gravitate between each other, but is the I can't read that word, that makes one material body to press to another. We wrongly call this phenomenon gravitation. So he is contesting Isaac Newton's theory of gravity. And more specifically in yellow, and dear God, I can't read those words for love nor money, but you can, if you wish to, read that for yourself. Moving on. The only force you need to counter is the electromagnetic force, EMF skies. They are something also I've spoken a great deal about over on TSP TV in recent weeks and months, leading up to the community strike status that has prevented us and rendered us unable to present live streams over on there, which is why we are now relocated at Reality Decoded for your live presentation experience, information and educational purposes. Thus, UFOs, unidentified flying object, as seen in photos of flying saucers and the like, are nothing other than anti-gravity craft. Though a more apt name for them would probably be electromagnetic levitation craft. These crafts are simply flying by manipulating the natural laws of magnetism, as shown to you in this video. So let's have a little look at that video. right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed that very relaxing classical music, and maybe you found that a little bit fascinating. Indeed, imagine being a kid and having those little flying saucers to play with your little army men in train sets. That would be absolutely fantastic. But as you can see, guys, this technology exists. It is there. If you can make a little tiny disc spin around on a metal magnetic device, then maybe you could replicate that on a larger scale. And maybe all these 5G towers and stuff like that are actually providing the magnetic grid for some of these anti-gravity craft to be able to traverse on, if you get what I'm saying, guys. But anyway, let's move on a little bit more. And here are some images from the Nikola Tesla patents, and these are things that he patented back in the 1800s, in early 1900s. And there is a short video which is unavailable for us to watch, but here are some photographs. Like these show the Tesla technology has been put to good use by those keeping his invention secret. Let's zoom in there for you if you can see those. There we are, some of his what looks like flying saucer technology that he created over 100 years ago. Now consider this. NASA gets $20 billion per year for the Mars Curiosity mission alone, and the output from that money is a collection of rubbish Photoshop images, which is, you saw countless examples in The Greatest Liar of All Time. How Big is America? Some images there, courtesy of NASA. 2007, and then in 2012 it got bigger by the looks of things. But anyway, so with that in mind, it's not a big leap to think that they could have used that money to develop Tesla's flying saucer technology further, redirecting of funds into black budget operations, if you know what I mean. Money laundering and such forth like that, channeling of redirecting things into hidden files that are classified, yada yada, wooty woo, ray tay tay. Not gonna go out on a limb and say that has possibly happened before, once or twice, in governmental agencies. Where they've obtained funding for one thing but used it for another nefarious purpose. But surely they must have come a long way in the 105 years since Tesla said this. And bear in mind, over 105 years ago, he developed this technology that was considered not fit for human public viewing, and was confiscated and landed in the hands of the Trump family. Where they have maintained ownership of such his research and technology and such forth all belongs to the Trumps now. But he was carrying out this experimentation. He did have all of this technology in the 1800s, early 1900s, a long time ago. And even by today's standards, when we see this Tesla type technology at work, it seems very futuristic and alien, I guess, to many folk who are unaware that this technology does exist and has existed for over a century. So just how developed and advanced is it now? If you look at aircraft and automobiles 100 years ago to what they look like now, quite a contrast, right, guys? But anyway, back 105 years ago, or probably longer at time of recording, because this article did come out in 2016. So at the start of the 20th century, Tesla said this: the application of this principle will give the world a flying machine unlike anything that has ever been suggested before. It will have no planes, no screws, propellers, or devices of any kind hitherto used. It will be small and compact, excessively swift, and above all perfectly safe in the greatest storm. It can be built of any size and can carry any weight that may be desired. And that was written in The Sun, New York, 1911. Again, another 9/11 reference there. Tesla promises big things. Here is an interesting article that I'd recommend reading for all of those who want more details on Nikola Tesla's UFO patent confiscated by the NSA. most UFOs are Tesla powered. An interesting article for you to look up yourself if you want to. As I said, this is still a very, very long article, and we can't be clicking on all the links, or this would turn out to be a never-ending 10-hour stream, I'm guessing. But although it would end if it was 10 hours long, it would end after 10 hours. But you know what I'm getting at, guys. There are many juicy details in that article, but allow me to highlight one passage in particular. In bright sunlight, the aircraft stroke spacecraft may seem surrounded by hot air, a slight magnetic distortion of the light. In semi-darkness and night, the metal sheets glow, even though a thin ceramic outer hull with different color. The visible light is a byproduct of the electricity flowing over the metal sheets according to the frequencies used. With that in mind, watch this. This is the most famous UFO sighting over Washington, D.C. Okay, short and sweet, but to the point. And there is a photograph of the images above Washington, D.C. with the White House in the front there. And you can also see a little bit of blue beaming going on, perhaps. The blue beam references seeing quite obvious. This clearly illustrates the possibilities that are possible with the sort of technology that we discussed above. With an unlimited budget, it's not hard to imagine that hundreds or even thousands of these crafts could have been produced in the last century. And it is presumably some of these UFOs have been developed to be able to fly without being manned, just like conventional drones. Is this what is going on at Roswell? Is this what they found as part of the Roswell crash? Did they find some of this technology fueled by Tesla's research that was being carried out, conducting testing out in the desert there, that was what become so very, very famous and well documented and reported incidents regarding UFOs in the last century. But presumably some of these UFOs have been developed to be able to fly without being manned, just like conventional drones I just read. Now imagine what the widespread reaction would be if a few of these crafts showed up one day over a handful of the largest cities, which is the sort of narrative of many of these alien invasion movies and TV shows. You know, V, Independence Day, even War of the Worlds. There were references that these cylinders were all over the capital cities of the world. And for example, Washington, New York, London, Tokyo, Paris, Los Angeles, many of these cities we do see depicted as being destroyed as a result of alien antics as part of their invasion campaign in many of the programmatic science fiction popular movies and TV shows. Once again, in V, that is where all the ships, all the motherships from the visitors turned up over all the major cities. But incidentally, that is what you may have seen in a movie or two, is what I'm saying. For example, and as I was just talking about, the 2009 TV show V, although I'm referencing the classic 1980s version of V, as my source of reference. I didn't actually watch the rebooted version, but the 1980s was a classic piece of sci-fi that did introduce us to friendly aliens that then turned to hostile aliens once they had gained humanity's trust. But notice that the second highlighted part also sounds a lot like what the Freemasons have done. My Apologies, guys. Trying to get it big enough to read. Premise, and this is for V. Giant spaceships appear over 29 major cities throughout the world. The beautiful, charismatic leader of the extraterrestrial visitors declares that they come in peace. The visitors claim to only need a small amount of Earth's resources in exchange for which they will share advanced technological and medical knowledge. As a small number of humans begin to doubt the sincerity of the seemingly benevolent visitors, Agent Erica Evans discovers that the aliens are actually reptilian humanoids wearing pseudo-human skin and have spent decades infiltrating human government, businesses and religious institutes, and are now in the final stages of their plan to take over the Earth. Erica joins the resistance movement, which includes Ryan, a visitor sleeper agent who over time developed human emotions and now wants to save humanity. And here is the plot of Independence Day, 1996. An enormous mothership has... I can't read it, it's too small, guys. You can read it yourself, but you do understand if you've seen Independence Day, that large motherships do descend over all the major cities, and then eventually they do start their path of destruction as they do try to conquest Earth. And the Signs 2002, another similar rhetoric that alien motherships descend and hover over large major cities. District 9, another recent piece of fiction in which alien refugees come to Earth looking for salvation and sanctuary from a war-torn galaxy, and then are sort of given sort of a little bit of a space to live in and are treated quite terribly in actual fact. But an alien ship inexplicably stops over Johannesburg, another major city of the world. When investigator teams enter the ship, they discover a population of sick and malnourished extraterrestrials who have become nicknamed prawns. The South African government confines the aliens to District 9, a government camp, FEMA camp maybe, concentration camp, death camp, whatever you want to label it as, that is located right outside of Johannesburg. 28 years later, in 2010, following a period of conflict between the aliens and the locals living near District 9, the government hires private military company to relocate the aliens to a new interment. Sorry, it's so fucking small I can't read it, even magnified. I'm struggling to read there. But anyway, you get the picture, guys, that in all these sci-fi fictional movies regarding alien invasions, they do seem to turn up over all the major cities, just as stated above. Let's go back from the Freemasons here, wherever it was, but we've lost it. Never mind, let's continue to go forward, not back, guys. As I said, it is a long thing, long article to get through. But what if I told you this was all predictive programming? And there is what's his name from The Matrix. What if I told you the red pill and the blue pill came from the same propaganda factory, guys? There's an interesting conundrum for you. Needless to say, anti-gravity technology could easily give world leaders a perfectly good reason to unite against a common enemy. That said, that technology pales in comparison to what you will see next. And I'm going to take a little break now to refresh myself and maybe get a little bit of a smoke break. So see you in a second.
To relive the excitement that is the most extraordinary miniseries ever. A daring TV journalist struggling to uncover the startling truth behind the aliens' visit to Earth. And a beautiful and brave young scientist fighting for the very survival of the human race. Together they take you on on a fantastic journey to meet the visitors. Prepare yourself for a television event that's out of this world. Prepare for V. Next.
V. It was 1983 when TV audiences first saw this miniseries about an alien invasion of the planet Earth. Almost 30 years later, V is regarded as both a landmark piece of science fiction and good old-fashioned entertaining television. I should point out that I am a huge fan of V, and I try to watch the entire series at least once a year. Now, even though V premiered 3 decades ago, it's still popular among science fiction fans. So why does V still endure after all these years? What is it about the story that continues to capture the imagination of so many viewers? In order to answer these questions, we have to go back and take another look at the miniseries V. Now, the plot of V is relatively straightforward and simple. An alien fleet arrives on Earth and claims to come in peace, but in reality, they wish to harvest humanity for food. Now, this plot is very similar to an episode of the classic sci-fi TV series, The Twilight Zone, and the episode is called To Serve Man. In the episode, an alien arrives on Earth to much fanfare and claims that all he wants to do is help humanity. He wants to cure humanity of all its diseases and share his vast alien knowledge with the entire planet. He's even carrying around this book called To Serve Man. It's only later when the alien has gained the trust of humans that it is revealed the book To Serve Man is actually a cookbook. Sounds silly, right? But the first part of V follows the same story structure. The structure is people are giving up their freedom or voluntarily surrendering to some benevolent power who promises to take care of everything. If you go outside the realm of science fiction, the story of a fascist regime taking over America seems inspired by the Sinclair Lewis novel called It Can't Happen Here. Now, in this story, America is taken over by a charismatic politician who slowly turns into a dictator. And ordinary people have to fight back with armed resistance. Now, in the original drafts of V, the draft was called Storm Warnings, and it was a fascist government that took over the country. It was similar to It Can't Happen Here. A fascist government has taken over control of the country. The bosses at NBC did not like this idea and sought to exploit the popularity of Star Wars, so they later replaced the idea of fascist humans with conquering, invading aliens, and the series known as V was born. Now, when V made its premiere in 1983, it was the golden age of the TV miniseries. Miniseries like Roots and The Thornbirds were watched by tens of millions of people because at this time there were only so few networks on TV. There was NBC, ABC, and CBS. So when a miniseries premiered, not only you watched it, but you could be sure that most other people in the country were watching it as well. But V captured a large audience through its very shrewd marketing campaign, which was designed by creator Kenneth Johnson. Now, Johnson had his NBC staff hang up visitor propaganda, actual visitor propaganda, all over New York and LA. So people would walk through the city and see these posters saying, "Friendship is universal." And these were the exact same posters that we would later see in the actual V miniseries. But a few weeks before the series premiered, Johnson had the staff go through the city and spray paint those same posters with the letter V. Now, no one had ever promoted a miniseries this way, so it really heightened audiences' curiosity about the show. It must have worked because when V premiered over its 2 nights, it captured an estimated 50 million viewers.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our program of dance music to bring you a special bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. At 20 minutes before 8 Central Time, Professor Farrell of the Mount Jennings Observatory, Chicago, Illinois, reports observing several explosions of incandescent gas occurring at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The spectroscope indicates the gas to be hydrogen and moving toward the Earth with enormous velocity.
In 1938, Orson Welles did a now infamous radio broadcast of the science fiction story War of the Worlds. Now, legend has it that the radio drama was so effective in its imitation of an actual news bulletin that the radio broadcast caused widespread panic all across the country, as people mistakenly thought they were being invaded by Martians. The famous broadcast not only demonstrated Wells's power as a storyteller, but also demonstrated the profound power of the medium of radio. How people got their information was just as important, if not more important, than the information itself. 40 years later, in V, we see the power of a different media. In this case, the medium of television. Television and the power of television plays a significant role in the V series. Let's think about this. The opening scenes from the series, we see a TV broadcast from a battle in El Salvador. It is here where we first meet the show's main character, a TV cameraman named Mike Donovan. Now, when the visitors finally arrive, V's ensemble cast all watch the event via television. In fact, the first 30 minutes of the series are all shots of people entranced by what they're watching on their TV sets. This is effective because it allows the show's creators to introduce and organize all these different characters we're going to be meeting. But we also see the importance of TV as a medium for spreading information and forming public opinions. When Mike Donovan sneaks aboard the mothership and discovers that the visitors are actually man-eating lizards, the aliens respond by seizing control of the media itself. So when the visitors seize power, this is the power that they're seizing, the power of the media. The aliens don't just invade our planet, they invade how we communicate as well. For me, V was never about action or violence. It was a show about power. Who has power and who doesn't. Now, in the story, as the visitors take control, the power relations between the characters begin to shift. In one of my favorite scenes, we see two parents who have become terrified of their son because he's been recruited by the visitors. It won't be lost on viewers that the visitors are supposed to be references to the Nazis and the Nazi Empire. One of the series' characters is even a Holocaust survivor who sees the persecution of scientists as an eerie reminder of what happened to Jews in Nazi Germany. These not-so-subtle references to Nazism tell us what the story arc of V is really doing, which is reenacting the story of World War II. The victory over the Nazis in World War II has become part of the mythology of American history. The conquest of Europe by fascists, the uniting of all Americans, rich, poor, black and white, male and female, and the country's subsequent victory over the Nazis is a story that has been reimagined in countless other forms. The story of a ragtag group of human rebels fighting off an alien invasion proved so popular that V was made into a weekly series in 1984, but it was canceled after only one season. V remained popular for several years and even was rebooted in 2010 as a series on ABC, but I feel the original miniseries will stand the test of time. Thanks for listening.
Hopefully you enjoyed that little diversion as we looked at the mini-series V and how particular it made reference to Nazi or fascist invasions of the United States in America, and it could indeed provide one possible and plausible plot for the elites and their intended alien agenda should we see a false flag hoax alien invasion in the not so distant future. And goodness knows, guys, 2020 was strange enough. What the fuck is 2021 gonna hold in store for us? As some of you may know, the sequels are often bigger, better, and sometimes have a higher death toll. So moving swiftly along, bearing in mind, that being said, the technology that we just witnessed pales in comparison to what we are about to see next, guys. And here we go. Project Bluebeam, something TSP TV and myself has brought to you hours and hours of information and related articles to the possibility that COVID-19 is in fact the cover-up and the distraction to keep our eyes averted from looking to what they are really doing, and that could possibly be setting up the final pieces that they need to implicate Project Bluebeam, guys. As I said, I don't think there's many people that have, I mean, there probably is, but there's certainly something that I have spoken extensively about is Project Bluebeam, and for some time since the formation of TSP TV and now Reality Decoded, part of the Ship Video Production Group, something I have many occasions have mentioned is the false flag alien invasion, and in reference to Project Bluebeam. So let's continue with what the author of this particular presentation and article has to say about Project Bluebeam that will complement and supplement already the existing information provided to you by myself over on TSP TV. There is a playlist and 6 videos and close to 20 hours of footage and information on Project Bluebeam. But first of all, this is one of the most important topics for you to research right now, and this was back in 2016 and ever more prominent in 2020 contemporary times, that you go out of your way and do a little bit further research. And why not start that research by checking out TSP TV's playlist on Project Bluebeam, and this is one that has stayed well hidden, but not so hidden for a very long time. Note that any official information about it is hard to come by, but it is nonetheless very real. Project Bluebeam is without a doubt one of the critical, and notice critical is crucial importance to the establishment of the NWO. So I implore you to research it for yourself beyond what you will see here if you don't want to become a victim of it. And again, I reiterate, go check out TSP TV's playlist on Project Bluebeam, something I have extensively researched and brought to you information for educational purposes to watch at your leisure. And again, we don't really have much of 2020 left, so if not that research carries on over into 2021, I do encourage you to look into it yourself. Further on, let's carry on with this particular article. With that being said, let's look at what all the fuss is about. First, we will look at some holographic technology, and then you will learn exactly what Project Bluebeam involves. So holograms to start with. Watch these 4 short videos, which unfortunately, the first one, second one, isn't available to watch, but here is the third one. Let's have a little look at this. So there was Celine Dion singing alongside a hologram of Elvis Presley, and a very interesting choice of song. Also, if you paid attention, you may have heard that Celine, in the opening part of that song, mentioned in the lyrics, she dreams of a land where her man can walk hand in hand, or where a fellow man can walk hand in hand. Sounds a little bit like the rhetoric for the One World Order. And once again, another video that is unavailable for you to watch. Amazing, right? But considering this, if technology like that is used at high schools, shopping malls, and by American Idol, what kind of holographic technology do you suppose the military and secret black budget operations have that the public don't know about? And again, some of these quirky things that we have and use in everyday society are, for example, the smartphone. Surveillance Monitoring Advanced Research Technology is the acronym for SMART, was originally a militarized weapon system, and now we use them for our own convenience. But anyway, as we said, imagine what our technology does behold within the realms of secret shadow government agencies. But the idea of a hologram of Allah over Baghdad was already discussed openly in the 1990s, as shown in this Washington Post article. Let's click on that and see if we can get that up on the screen. When seeing and hearing isn't believing. So we will go a little bit deterring just to read this. Let me make it slightly larger so I can read it. And this was written on Monday, the February the 1st, 1999. Gentlemen, we have called you together to inform you that we are going to overthrow the United States government. So begins a statement being delivered by General Carl W. Steiner, former Commander-in-Chief, U.S. Special Operations Command. At least the voice sounds amazingly like him. But that is not Steiner. It is the result of voice morphing technology developed in the Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico. By taking just a 10-minute digital recording of Steiner's voice, scientist George Papkun is able to, in near real time, to clone speech patterns and develop an accurate facsimile. Steiner was so impressed he asked for a copy of his tape. Steiner was hardly the first or last victim to be spoofed by Papkin's team members. To refine their method, they took various high-quality recordings of generals and experimented with creating fake statements. One of the most memorable is Colin Powell stating, "I am being treated well by my captors." They chose to have him say something he would never otherwise have said, chuckled one of Papkin's colleagues. A box of chocolates is like war. Most Americans were introduced to the tricks of the digital age in the movie Forrest Gump, when the character played by Tom Hanks appeared to shake hands with President Kennedy. For Hollywood, it is special effects. For covert operations in the U.S. military and intelligence agencies, it's a weapon of the future. Once you can take any kind of information and reduce it into ones and zeros, you can do some pretty interesting things, says Daniel T. Kuel, chairman of the Information Operation Department of the National Defense University in Washington, the military's school for information warfare. Digital morphing, voice, video, and photo has come of age, available for use in psychological operations. PSYOPs, as the military calls it, seek to exploit human vulnerabilities in enemy governments, militaries, and populations to pursue national and battlefield objectives. To some, PSYOPs is a backwater military discipline of leaflet dropping and radio propaganda. To a growing group of information war technologists, it is the nexus of a fantasy and reality. Is this a real life? Is this just fantasy? Being able to manufacture convincing audio or video, they say, might be the difference in a successful military operation or coup. Allah on the holodeck. Pentagon planners started to discuss the digital morphing after Iraq's invasion of Kuwait in 1990. covert operations kicked around the idea of creating a computer-faked videotape of Saddam Hussein crying or shouting other such manly weaknesses, or showing, other such manly weaknesses, or in some sexually compromising situation. The nascent plan was for the tapes to be flooded into Iraq and the Arab world. The tape war never proceeded, killed participants, say, by bureaucratic fights over jurisdiction, skepticism over the technology, and the concerns raised by an Arab coalition partners. But the strategic PSYOPs scheming didn't die. What if the US projected a holographic image of Allah floating over Baghdad, urging the Iraqi people and army to rise up against Saddam, a senior Air Force officer asked in 1990? According to a military physicist giving the task of looking into the hologram idea, the feasibility had been established of projecting a large three-dimensional objects that appeared to float in the air. But doing so over the skies of Iraq, to project such a hologram over Baghdad on the order of several hundred feet, they calculated would take a mirror more than a mile square in space, as well as huge projectors and power sources. And besides, investigators came back, what does Allah look like? The Gulf War hologram story might be dismissed were it not the cause of case that WashingtonPost.com has learned that a super secret program was established in 1994 to pursue the very technology for PSYOPs application. The holographic projector is described in a classified Air Force document as a system to project information power from space. Maybe this is what what's his name, Elon Musk, and his SpaceX satellites are really all about, guys. And maybe this is why we are being distracted by all of this goings on by the COVID narrative. To project information from space for special operation deception missions. Voice morphing, fake video, holographic projection. They sound more like Mission Impossible and Star Trek gimmicks than weapons, yet for each there are corresponding and growing research efforts as the technologies improve and offensive information warfare expands. Now bear in mind, guys, this article did come out in 1999, 21 years ago. One can only imagine how they've evolved and adapted this technology in today's standards. Whereas early voice morphing required cutting and pasting speech to put letters or words together to make a composite, Papcom software developed at Los Alamos can far more accurately replicate the way one actually speaks. Eliminated the robotic intonations. So the irony is that after Papcom finished his speech cloning research, there were no takers in the military. Luckily for him, Hollywood is interested. The promise of creating a virtual Clark Gable, Elvis Presley, is mightier than the sword. And also in recent years, Disney introduced Grand Moff Tarkin to Rogue One, as well as a very young Princess Leia in the Star Wars Rogue One movie. But video and photo manipulation has already raised profound questions of authenticity for journalistic world. With audio joining the mix, it's not only journalists but also privacy advocates and the conspiracy minded who will no doubt ponder the worrisome mischief that lurks in the not so distant future. We already know that seeing isn't necessarily believing, says Dan Kuel. Now I'm guessing hearing isn't believing either. So let's return hopefully back to the point of origin where we started with that little detour from the intended feature presentation and the article in question that we are looking to. But The strategic psyops scheming didn't die. What if the US projected a holographic image of Allah floating over Baghdad, as we just read in the article, was asked back in 1990, 30 years ago, people. So again, a lot can happen in 30 years. Bearing in mind, in 1939, man only had propeller aircraft to fight its warfare, and then allegedly in 1969, 30 years later, they had the technology to put a man on the moon, if you want to believe in all of that. But nevertheless, according to a military science physicist, given the task of looking into the hologram idea, the feasibility had been established of projecting large three-dimensional objects that appeared to float in the air. The same article also discusses voice morphing technology developed at the Los Alamos Laboratory. To put it bluntly, it would be incredibly naive to think that DARPA, Lockheed Martin, the CIA, NASA, etc. don't already have some seriously advanced holographic and auditory technology hidden from the public. Can I get an amen? 99% of you aren't brave enough to share, but share if you agree. You might get the idea after watching two 2-minute videos, and again, unfortunately, one of them isn't available and two of them aren't available to watch. So moving further on, below is the basic model of how holograms work. I won't go into any technical details in this post, but you can learn more about them. Components of a hologram. So you have a laser, an object, a mirror, reflectors, such forth. You can see that for yourself. For some reason, those words are extremely blurry for me. Most sources will tell you that holograms, like the planes on 9/11, require satellites or maybe 5G towers. But as you may have seen, the greatest liars of all time, in particular this video, satellites are not real. Again, we're not going to click on that video. But I am a strong believer that the events of 9/11 could well have been a prototype dummy run for Project Bluebeam, and testing out the technology to see if holographic imagery and directed energy weaponry could be used against humanity and could be used to deceive the population and television audiences that tuned in to watch that special PSYOP live event back on Tuesday, September the 11th, 2001. Now, you're probably wondering how holographs on that scale would work without satellites. For a clue, we can refer you to the video below, which shows you how you can make a hologram with just some simple materials and your smartphone. Luckily enough, this video is available to watch.
Get ready, guys, because you're about to learn how to make your very own hologram. So this is actually much simpler than you probably imagined. All you're going to need is graph paper, a CD case that's been lying around, just an old one will do, some tape, a pen, a pair of scissors, a smartphone, and a knife or glass cutter. So basically, we start by drawing out a basic rhombus shape. Try and get yours as close to this as possible, with the dimensions 1 centimeter by 3.5 centimeters by 6 centimeters. If you're feeling ambitious, you could always try and sort of double those or triple those, and you will get a nicer effect, but just for ease of use and sort of getting this on camera, we're going for that size. So you get your little paper template, and then just before we start cutting, just take off the sides of the CD case, because they're just going to get in the way. You don't need them at all. So ideally, this is going to be plastic. If you just happen to have a glass one, it can work, but just be extra careful. The higher the transparency, the better the image will come through, but it doesn't matter if it's sort of old and dusty, as long as you just give it a clean and make sure there aren't too many scratches. So then get a scalpel, a knife or a glass cutter, and again, very carefully trace around the template. Once you've cut your first one out, you can then use that to get the others. Then, you can see I've actually slightly broken mine. Shouldn't be too much of an issue. Try and fasten them together like this using a little bit of tape. I originally tried glue, but then they just fell apart, so this seems to work fine. And that's basically it. You have a hologram. So the way we're going to work this is you use your smartphone to load up either on YouTube or the internet browser. I'll put a link in the description to a couple of videos, but you load a hologram specific video. So video is actually made to use this technology. And basically you very carefully place the hologram that we've made onto the middle of your smartphone, and it'll just work. Turn off all the lights and just enjoy. You actually get a full 360 degrees of vision. And obviously the clearer the sort of plastic or glass you use and the less of a mess you make of it, the nicer the picture's going to be. You can see I've got some glue stains from my first failed attempt, and the tape doesn't exactly look great, but this is incredibly cool. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video.
So there you go, guys, how easy it is to create a hologram of your own. Maybe we might even try to do that ourselves one day for future presentation purposes. And maybe if you are inclined to, you could do it at home. Maybe send me the video of your results and I will include it in a future presentation if you so desire. But the key thing to note is in the video above is that you don't need a light source from above to create a 3D holographic image. In other words, ground-based holographic technology is all that should be required. And is this why they are going to such a large extent to put up so many 5G towers? Could they be, excuse me, the device that is going to provide the backdrop for the 3D projections? That said, if you had a reflective surface above you, like say a glass-like dome, such as the one that is responsible for rainbow, sundogs, double sun reflection, and the 24-hour sun, as discussed in What Goes Round Comes Round, and that again is another article of interest that you may want to choose to read for yourself, that is available on the Narrowgate website. But then I'm sure you could use it to your advantage. Unmanned high-altitude drones could possibly do a job too if light sources from above were really necessary. And there is another little diagram for you there. Let's move on. Check out some of these objects in the sky which could feasibly be test runs of the holographic technology. Here is a strange anomaly in the sky as the moon appears completely different in LA compared to New York on the same night. And guess what, guys? That video isn't available for you to watch. But recently there was a little bit of a trend some years ago that floating cities, particularly in China, were making the rounds on social media and videos on YouTube and such forth. And there is an image of one of these floating cities. Is this evidence of holographic technology at use? I would say there is a very strong plausibility that it is. Newspapers like this one, and again you've got to click on the link, will tell you that this is a result of mirages, but that is obviously nonsense. For example, those clouds feature some patterns consistent with holographic pattern repetition, which indicates that it is a hologram. Unfortunately, the explanation offered by mainstream media articles about this being a mirage are enough to satisfy most people's curiosity. This video discusses this in more depth and also shows you more examples from around the world. So lucky enough, we do have this video to watch.
So I don't know if you guys saw this over the weekend, but there was hundreds of people reporting they saw a floating city in the skies above China. It was on Chinese news stations, and there's even a clip of it. And it's been explained away as an optical illusion in the comments sections of these YouTube videos that in China, the scientists have explained it, and it has to do with the way that cold, dense air at the surface bends light reflected from a distant object, otherwise known as a fata morgana. Looks something like this. Although, in my opinion, this video, it looks a little bit high off the ground for that to be the case, but that's what they're claiming. But there have been other sightings of these cities appearing in the sky that cannot be so easily explained away. And I don't know if you guys remember back in 2012 when an entire African village saw what appeared to be a city floating in a cloud over their village. And the way they described it was beautiful tall buildings inside of it with tarred roads and cars. It was like a flying city, and from it I could hear the sound of machines making noise just as you would hear at a Shaka cement factory. Obviously that wasn't a reflection of their city because they don't have tall buildings, they don't have tarred roads, so either all of these people were on crack and they hallucinated this, or somebody's playing with their toys over an area where they know people aren't going to have cell phones and whip out their iPhone and be able to film it. And I know some people have said it, and it was the first thing I thought of too, Project Bluebeam. There are people that claim that Bluebeam was never really an actual thing the government ever considered, that it was entirely made up. And I just want to point out to you that it's not. I actually came across this article in unrelated research, and it turns out they're talking basically about Bluebeam in here, and I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's an article from the Washington Post from 1999 called When Seeing and Hearing Isn't Believing. And they're talking about psyops in here, and the different things they came up with. Get to this part where it says, Allah on the holodeck. It talks about all these psyops that the Pentagon was planning against the Iraqis after the invasion of Kuwait in 1990, and one of the things they came up with was, what if the U.S. projected a holographic image of Allah floating over Baghdad, urging the Iraqi people and army to rise up against Saddam? A senior Air Force officer asked in 1990. According to a military physicist who was given the task of looking into this idea, the feasibility had been established of projecting large three-dimensional objects that appear to float in the air. But could they do it over Iraq? And it says that they calculated that projecting such a hologram over Baghdad several hundred feet would take a mirror more than a mile square in space, as well as huge projectors and power sources, and they weren't sure what Allah looked like. But then it goes on to say that the Gulf War hologram story might be dismissed were it not the case that Washington Post had learned a super secret program was established in 1994 to pursue the very technology for PSYOPs application. The holographic projector is described in a classified Air Force document as a system to project information power from space for special operations deception missions. So they were going to do it. They were looking into it. And that's back in 94. So in 90 they came up with the idea, started looking into it. In 94 they were pursuing it. Who knows what they actually have today? But they probably wouldn't test it here where every other person and their grandma has an iPhone. They're going to test it in places like in Africa, in some village where they're banking on the fact that the people aren't going to have iPhones. Not only that, but I just want to point out really quick, and by now you're probably figuring out that this mysterious sighting in China just gave me an excuse to talk about this article, but they also had a technology that takes a 10-minute digital recording of someone's voice and is able to clone their speech patterns in order to develop an accurate facsimile. So Los Alamos National Laboratory, they were coming up with that back in the 90s. Meaning all of these people today, for example, who, commit crimes because they hear Obama's voice telling them to do it, may actually be hearing a psychotronic weapon with Obama's voice, because apparently the PSYOPs team at Los Alamos was coming up with stuff like this back in the 90s. And all it takes is a 10-minute clip of someone's voice. Take one of Obama's speeches, 10 minutes, and you can make him say anything and it sounds real. This is the kind of stuff they had like 2 decades ago. Can you imagine the stuff they have today?
So there you go. That was a little bit interesting, and the lady did actually reiterate the article that we just read at the New York Post. There's no real reason for me to have read it, but never mind. Let's continue to go further on. Some more strange things in the skies recently. You may have seen there were some images also of Christ that was seen over the ocean, I think down in Brazil some months or possibly a couple of years ago that was making the rounds on social media, and I think it was at a time before I was a YouTuber, and did also think at the time, Project Bluebeam, folks, there it is. It's very, very real, and there once again is a video that is unable to be watched. But the strange phenomenon aren't limited to just what we can see, as loud as incredibly strange sounds have been all over the world in recent years also. And that was another thing around the time of these floating cities and these images of Christ floating in the sky. People were hearing trumpets and or sounds that sounded like trumpets in the air. This is a longer video.
New at 11 now, it's a nervous night for residents of Fair Lawn, New Jersey, wondering if it will happen again. For about a week there, the area's been plagued by loud, booming sounds. Problem is, no one knows where the sound is coming from.
We were looking at each other what was that?
It happened twice in the past week to Danielle McManus and her family. While inside their home, in a usually very quiet Fair Lawn neighborhood, things went bump in the night.
If we didn't know any better, it almost sounds like a cannon. It was so deep and just echoey.
Elsewhere in this neighborhood along the Passaic River, residents say they've heard loud booms as early as 6 p.m. and as late as 2 in the morning.
It's like psh, psh. It was like grr, grr, brr, like that.
I heard the noise, so I came out here. Sometimes, people dump garbage. I sounded like a garbage truck.
Initially, they thought maybe the noises were coming from this PSE&G plant in Patterson across the river from the communities where the noises are being reported. Construction is going on, but a neighbor closest to this plant says the booms are not coming from here. Have you heard any sounds coming from this plant?
No explosions.
He has extra officers deployed, more eyes and ears for when whatever it is disturbs the peace again.
Not often we report on falling prices. One of many people in Gloucestershire and Wiltshire that heard a loud boom coming from the skies last night. The noise was heard at Cotswold Airport near the village of Kemble at around 10 o'clock. Some say their entire houses shook. But the airport and the police say it was all part of an emergency services exercise.
Yeah, that's right, AJ Abbey. We'll take a look at this map. This is where residents say they are hearing the loud booms, and you can see right across this map, you can see North Florida and South Georgia. Almost all the counties in our coverage area are covered. Now take a look at some of what our viewers posted on Facebook. Kelly writes, she's writing from Havana at around 10:30. It sounded like a loud truck rumbling, went outside, and nothing. Also, Precious B writes, it felt like I heard the noise I heard at the time referenced my home shook. I thought it was an earthquake. Yet another viewer also telling us that this one is Stephanie. She says, I have heard and felt several times over the last few days, dogs go crazy and the windows rattle. It felt like the whole house was shaking. Now, we did reach out to this, as so many of you were talking about this. We decided to go in search of what may have caused the boom. We reached out to Tyndall Air Force Base near Panama City. Officials told us 4 of their aircraft were flying Tuesday evening during that time, but they also said there was no indication of any sonic boom that would be noticeable in the areas reported.
There's a lot of people talking about this, a loud noise. Emergencies calls, all this in Dodge County, people wondering, what was it?
Yeah, what caused this boom? Was it a force of nature or a different kind of force?
8 p.m.
Been doing that for a solid 2 hours now. What the hell that noise is?
Strange. Yeah.
Nothing now.
Actually thought maybe it was a traffic crash outside my house, so went outside, drove around the neighborhood looking for something, and wasn't able to locate anything.
The house shook and there was a loud boom.
What caused this boom? Was it a force of nature or a different kind of force?
The only salvation for this sin is the gospel. The only way to really cure that what's on the inside is understanding that Jesus Christ died for our sins. And so to me, on a micro level, it's understanding.
And just like that, we lost him. I know.
Okay, so there was some very, very interesting audio and visual there to suggest and provide some kind of evidence to the technologies that we were just talking about existing. And interesting enough, you did hear at the beginning there was a British segment in that little video when they talked about Gloucester and Wiltshire. Well, Wiltshire happens to be my home county. My town of Swindon resides within Wiltshire, and Kemble Air Force is just a stone's throw away from where I live, although I wasn't living there in 2016 to have heard those sort of sounds. But moving on, having seen the videos and images above, here's a fun hypothetical question for you. This is the first thing you see through your window early in the morning. What do you do? And indeed, what would you do if you saw a dragon window? My first inclination would be to think, oh my goodness, Project Bluebeam has suddenly become very, very real and not of mythical conspiracy theories. But anyway, let's move on. Note that I am saying that it will happen. It's only a hypothetical question. That was from the author there. But the point I am trying to make, though, is that the technology exists that could make anything appear to happen, such as a fake alien invasion. And there is a picture of a UFO projecting a purplish beam over the city of London, St. Paul's Cathedral. There you can see to the left, and a very purpley sky and a little bit of blue beaming underneath that UFO. And something I've noticed an awful lot recently, and even have shared with you, and some of you even pointed out in a couple of Winter Wonderland walkabout videos I did upload on TSP TV on Christmas Day, that there was a purple tint to the sky. And also in the purple haze up in my brain. A special presentation on TSP TV recently we presented to you. I also added some photographs of sunsets that I had seen in my neighborhood recently, where the sky was very, very purple. Is the purple haze, the purple filter, going to help with the holographic imagery, like 3D glasses effect, so to speak? And there is another picture of some aliens blue beaming the planet below us. And guess what? There's another alien craft. I think that might even be Independence Day above New York City, Statue of Liberty and Empire State Building. Prominent, iconic buildings there. And some more imagery of some UFOs. There's a fake Messiah. This was also another part of Project Bluebeam. Again, go back, watch the videos on TSP TV, because it's not only to project a fake hoax alien invasion, they also are planning to use it to project a fake rapture religious experience. And again, with the technology that exists, then you don't need to just stop at angry Allahs. You could put Jesus, you could put Vishnu, you could put a number of religious deities into holographic form, project them over the cities that you so desire, and then using the audio technology that we just heard evidence of, you could get them delivering messages to the below people that are witnessing and listening. But alien saviors, which could tie in with the alien astronaut theories discussed earlier, and which could involve Palladian advanced beings, the Galactic Federation, Nordic aliens, as well as any of as well as any or all of the ascension stroke consciousness shift mantras promoted in the New Age movement. And again, don't forget that the rapture was mentioned in the Bible, where people will be lifted up to heaven. Again, you could quite easily use that as a backdrop for your psyop, and use your holographic technology to make it appear as though human beings were being raptured. There's an individual there, looks a little bit like the Heaven's Gate cult, which we did feature in a recent presentation here on a TSP TV, that did also base itself upon the ancient alien ascension, transcending into another life form philosophy there. And you can see in the palm of his hand a purple star, as well as what looks to be a Star of David on his chest there. Interesting. Or beating on a drum, don't know what that's all about. All of the above. And there is good old Jimmy Kimmel pretending his mind's been blown by the information. And there is the Big Lebowski, far out, man. So now that you know a little bit about the holographic technology hidden from you, let's look at Project Bluebeam in its specifically. All right, we're going to do that in a second because I'm going to take another little break before we get into Project Bluebeam. Although some of you guys, if you have been following along and you do as you state, watch all of my videos, or you lay claim to watch all of my videos, then you should be only too aware and should be able at this point in time to be able to start retorting what you have learned from TSP TV's presentations about Project Bluebeam. And if not, you are unfamiliar with that, then as I will reiterate, go and check out those streams. But those of you that have watched all my videos and do pay close attention will know what Project Bluebeam is all about. So you may be able to do some preaching to the choir in the chat section below while we are watching further this presentation on Close Encounters of the Hoax Kind.
My name is Bruno Huson. Valentin Lefebvre and I are the co-founders of Total Immersion Company, which specializes in augmented reality technology. So here, I have a flower in my hand. It's pretty, but it doesn't really exist. What you see is a 3D object that we're merging into a video in real time. By using standard personal computer, we can mix real and virtual together with a new level of interactivity, a new level of fluidity. And look how the flower is perfectly following the movement of my hand. So, what is the demonstration today? We have on this table 2 video cameras, providing video stream to both computers. We have on this table some real elements representing the real world. And we have on the screen the information after the images after the information has been processed using our technology. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how we can add and move around any object in this real world with a big simplicity. So what is augmented reality for? Our software is already used by our clients in aeronautic and automotive markets, such as Airbus, Nissan, BMW. We provide to this company a very powerful new product with multiple applications, from design simulation to maintenance. Using augmented reality, software engineers and designers can visualize new prototypes by changing shapes, colors, testing new ergonomic, cutting design time and cost dramatically, saving over 10 million euros on each project. So as we blend the real and the virtual together, the car that I have in my hand right now. Valentin, can I have something a little nicer, please? Thank you, Van. So as I put the hammer on this table, oh, you missed it. Let's try again, Valentin. As I put the hammer on this table, we are going to start a race by producing a 3D element that will take into account the actual relief of these real models using real terrain feedback. So it's important to note that what we'll hear on stage, using only a table and a few models to represent the real world, our clients are already merging 3D into video with exactly the same simplicity. So let me show you now how, using augmented reality, city planners and architects can test new models for their project, letting people visualize how these projects will change their surroundings. And once again, you can see here how this 3D building is perfectly merged to these rooms. So Valentin, as we have this building, can we have an heliport? Thank you, Val. And as we have an heliport, can you fly an helicopter? Yes. So these changes are also a great value to the entertainment industry, letting them storyboard new elements instantly and keep overall costs down. But look who is inside the helicopter. I think you know her. Oh, Chris. I didn't know you learned to pilot an helicopter. That's great news. Well, on top of that, we can even do lighting and environment mapping to get this 3D object as real as possible. So on location, on battlefield, in the research lab, on a road, or even in a small space, we can add any number of 3D objects, providing any information such as point-to-point distances. And once again, the ability of our software to mask the 3D element by these real models with such accuracy is unique. Let me give you another example of how, using augmented reality, we can even look inside this building to see how it is laid out. That's totally new. And right now, for those who still have some doubts about our technology, watch this and watch your heads, everybody. Valentin is going to fly the helicopter inside the audience. Be careful, Valentin. So, it's possible, even here in a hotel ballroom in Arizona, Scottsdale, to prove to you the flexibility our software provides to you and to many of your clients. I would like to thank Chris for her invitation. I would like to thank you for your attention. I would like to thank also Demo Organization. And I hope I'll get the opportunity to meet many of you on our booth 15. And let me break everything before.
Okay, guys, so hopefully you enjoyed those additional insertions that I put into this presentation that should give you a little bit of evidence to the holographic technology that is available, that is real, that is being used, and has been around for some years indeed, and is possibly quite far more advanced than we could even conceive. Certainly the holographic technology that may or may not lay within the hands of the elites and secret governmental agencies and military divisions. But anyway, what is Project Bluebeam, as I've already mentioned, is something you should be only too aware of if you do truly pay any genuine attention to what I have been uploading over on TSP TV, not through the duration of the COVIDian era, but for the duration of TSP TV being around. I do try to provide you with a lot of information for educational and informative purposes. But we are going to start to grasp what's going on here by watching a 13-minute video below. So there's a little bit more visuals for you to enjoy rather than listening to the monotone drone of my voice, although I do feel and am very aware that there are some viewers that is really the only reason they tune in. I could indeed just be reading a phone book and they would be contented with listening to my dulcet British tones. But anyway, the author does recommend sharing this video with everyone you know, as anyone who isn't aware of the section before it starts will be completely at the mercy of those running the show. Now, if you wanted to, you could also share some of my videos on Project Bluebeam, although they are quite longer than 13 minutes. So the memetical programmed minds of social media lights who like their 140 characters and their YouTube videos to be only 10 minutes long might not want to click on that link, so your dopamine intake or return might not be as high as it would be if you shared a shorter video with a larger audience base and reaction count on that. But no further ado, guys, let's click on the play button here and watch the little video suggested by the author on Project Bluebeam, just to refresh some of your minds and maybe introduce to some of you who didn't pay as much attention to those uploads as I might have liked you to have. guys, hopefully you enjoyed that. It was indeed certainly eye-opening. Even myself, somebody who's very, very, very aware of Project Bluebeam, also gets very like wow, overwhelmed when I see stuff like that. And this is the reason we are seeing, I believe, so many of these 5G towers. These are the reasons I've mentioned before, that the chemtrails, they are leaving particles in the sky that will react as some kind of screen projection system. And the reason that we are possibly seeing a purple tinge in the air and contemporary times is the fact that maybe they are adding the 3D filter layer to the atmosphere, so those holographic aliens really will pop to life when they start projecting them. But the video mentioned a 4-step plan for the implementation of the New World Order, and let's take a look through the 4 steps of Project Bluebeam together. It's one thing to sort of talk about Project Bluebeam, show the evidence of existing technology that could indeed provide weaponized systems for government and military agencies. But the first step concerns the breakdown of all archaeological knowledge. It deals with staging earthquakes, maybe even floods, tsunamis, such like this. Hurricane Katrina is something of particular interest to me. Was this a staged event? Was this an evidence of weaponized weather? Was this part of the dawning in of these natural disasters that replicate the books of Revelations and doomsday prophecies of when at the end days come, the sea will rise and the land will open and the sinners will be cast into the depths, is some of the stuff that is of doomsday prophecy, but we're not going to go too deep into that at the minute. But staging all of these earthquakes at certain precise locations around the planet were supposed to be where supposed new discoveries will finally explain that the meanings of the basic doctrines of all the world's major religions are wrong. And sort of kind of as an atheist, agnostic individual, kind of don't really buy in to the doctrines of any religions, but there is wisdom to be taken from any literature, and by no means am I encouraging anybody to give up their faith, change their belief system on behalf of me, or telling you to believe in anything that I necessarily believe in. You have your own mind and opinion to formulate your own belief system. All I am literally doing is sharing information with you that I have found interesting, and that could explain to me as to exactly what is going on in our reality, as I do try to decode it, and that information I share with you again is designed for you to kind of make up your own opinions for. And in order to gain a greater understanding, we need to observe the bigger picture and absorb as much information as we possibly can before we can discredit that information. We can't discredit information without understanding its knowledge. But this falsification will be used to make the popular belief that all religions' doctrine has been misunderstood and misinterpreted. The falsification started with the film 2001: A Space Odyssey, the TV series Star Trek, the Star Wars films, and E.T., all of them which deal with space invasion and protection. Well, there wasn't really any invasion in E.T. He just was left behind on an exploratory mission with his other friendly, passive, benevolent alien buddies. But anyway, the point of the matter is, all of these movies kind of do suggest outer world existence of beings that are not acknowledged within the realms of religious doctrine. So much. But the second step deals with the gigantic space show as per holograms. The 3D optical holograms and sounds laser projections of multi-holographic images in different parts of the worlds, each receiving a different image according to its predetermined original national religious faith. This new God image will talk in all languages. Voice of God technology, text to skull technology, guys. This stuff exists. And, you know, back in the 1990s, they were talking about projecting an angry Allah over Baghdad to, and then using the voice of God text-to-skull technology, then transmitting a message into the brains of the Iraqis, telling them to give up and surrender to the American. Note that the system has already been tested, as you might have gathered from the hologram examples above. Holographic projections of the Christ image have already been seen in some remote desert areas, as well as cities in the skies. This is them testing, guys. This is the dummy run. This is the drills. This is them putting it into practice to see if or not people will react to these holographic images. And some of those things we see at the shopping malls with the whales and the penguins and the seals and the polar bears and stuff. Again, this is getting people used to interacting with holograms, just like Pokemon Go was getting humanity used to interacting with an augmented reality, chasing pixelated monsters for no personal or financial gain whatsoever. A little also example of how humans can be herded and farmed electronically with just the reward of dopamine as your payback for your efforts. But these have only been reported in tabloid papers, so they are instantly rendered moot. They can also project images of alien craft, aliens, monsters, angels, you name it. Computers will coordinate the hologram signals, and software will run the show. And it is pretty much it, that if you can create things with zeros and ones, and then they can form things like dinosaurs, for example, in Jurassic Park, then you can now create those same dinosaurs in real time, real life, 3D solid holographic images. Bear that into consideration, guys. We also, once all of this is over, maybe start living in a real life augmented matrix. We may not necessarily be hooked up initially to the matrix, but they might start augmenting our reality around us using the blue beam technology. As an example, the Soviets, actual Russians, have manufactured the advanced computers and have programmed them with the minute psychological particles based upon their studies of the anatomy and biology of the human body, as well as their studies on anatomy, chemistry, and electricity of the human brain. These computers have also been fed with the different languages of the world. Holography is based on very nearly identical signals combining to produce an image or hologram with depth perception. This is equally applicable to acoustic ELF, VLF, and LF waves as it is to optical phenomena. Remember, Tesla talked about the only force that you should really pay attention to is that of the electromagnetic force. But specifically, the show will consist of laser projections of multiple holographic images to different parts of the planet, each receiving different images according to the predetermining regional religious faith. Not a single area will be excluded, with computer animation and sound effects appearing to come from the depths of space. Remember those crazy horns that we sort of seen and heard that all took place around mid-January 2016. They were testing and carrying out drills, guys, on their technology. And then once people start uploading and sharing videos on social media, and copying and pasting and agreeing on their social media news feeds, then the elites and the algorithms have their feedback and data to analyze on how or not of a success that particular test run and drill was. But the various images of Christ, Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna, etc., will merge into one. And remember a little bit this Heaven's Gate cult, and how they introduced the UFO phenomena within traditional Christian values, and led people to believe within that cult that Jesus Christ was in fact just the body vessel of an extraterrestrial being. But Naturally, this superbly staged full-scale production will result in social and religious disorder on a massive scale, destabilizing society even further than it is being destabilized now under the COVIDian doctrine and tyrannical measures in order to prevent its spread of a disease with 99.9% survival rate. I wonder why you need a vaccine for there. But wonder what the television transmitters of religious networks will be doing on that day. Probably something along these lines. There are a couple of funny little memes to accentuate what they think that these will do. But the third step deals with telepathic electronic two-way communication, ELF, extra low frequency, VLF, very low frequency, and LF, low frequency waves will reach the people of Earth through the insides of their brains, making each person believe that his own God is speaking to them from within his own soul, which is kind of why it's a good reason to maybe not believe in a God, because then maybe they can't target you with the voice of your own God. But as I said, that's up to you to decide on yourself. But such rays are fed from memory of computers that store much data about the human being. And bearing in mind, guys, the sentient world simulation stores all of our data, so they know exactly what they can personally target us with, and we carry around with us our own very little personal algorithmic handler of our own that we willingly give all of our most personal information. Even the pornography that we like to watch late at night after dark is going to be used against us one way or another, guys. Everything is traced, everything is analyzed, everything is data categorized. Thoughts will be sent to you telepathically with ELF and VLF, including suicidal thoughts. If you do not agree with the New World Order as explained in great depth in that article there, which we are not going to click on, guys, it is also getting to be a very, very long video indeed. But here's another video. This video has a lot of great information about ELF and mind control technology. Discretion advised, as much of it will shock you. So once again, let's click on, and it's only 10 minutes.
This one, Devil's Choir, a combination of instruments carefully blended for their violent input.
hopefully you managed to keep up with that, although I must admit I did struggle myself, as he did seem to flick quite quickly between some of the longer passages, but a lot of stuff that was contained in that was things that I have mentioned quite a lot in recent weeks over on a good old TSP TV with Medic Mind Control, Electromagnetic Mind Control, MK Ultra, Monarch Programming. All this kind of stuff is all kind of connected and being used in conjunction against us. And most importantly, if you did notice in that, they mentioned about how these certain substances can be introduced into vaccines that can then be administered into the bloodstream, that will give us a high, give the elites a higher control over our minds. So as I said, guys, you might need to stop and pause and reread that at your own leisure. But moving on. With this is why I repeatedly emphasize that you should question everything, and I tell you exactly the same. Question everything, but don't ever take my word for it. You need to make up your own thoughts and opinions on these matters, and all I am literally doing is being the messenger that is providing you information in order to be able to formulate those opinions for yourself. There's absolutely no need for you to share and agree, copy and paste the rabbit, but change what it's holding, or say amen in agreement with me. This is just simply information I am sharing that will hopefully give you enough knowledge to possibly think for yourself and question some of the things that you may or may not hold true. And to quote Obi-Wan Kenobi, many of the things in life we do hold true depend greatly on point of view. But an individual only resistance would be to constantly question the motivation behind their thoughts and not act upon thoughts which they consider to be outside their own ideological, religious and moral boundaries. And again, I've actually in recent weeks questioned my thoughts, and I don't want to be an alarmist, I'm not being a sensationalist, and I'm not saying this for sympathy, attention or any other reasons than the fact that I have had a little while ago some thoughts where I literally got out of bed and was holding my knife and was about to go and sit in the bathtub and cut my wrists, not because I'd had suicidal thoughts or was feeling suicidal thoughts. These thoughts were in my head at the time. However, rather than cut my wrists and bleed out in the bathtub, I went and rolled myself a couple of joints and sat outside and walked around on the grass barefoot for a little while, and here I am still recording ship video productions for your educational and informative purposes. Questioning one's own thoughts will be impossible for most people to do so, not for strictly physical reasons, but because we have been taught not to trust our senses and instead to blindly follow science, or maybe even blindly follow religion for that matter. Science and religion are flip sides of the same coin, so to speak. And what our textbooks and authority figures have told us and taught to us. So those who don't have a questioning attitude to start with will have little hope of figuring things out once the big deception starts. Something I've always had is the questioning of authority. I was always called, my grandmother, bless her, always told me, you're a rebel and you don't even know why. And I don't really know why I was such a rebel. I have no revolutionary causes that I rebel for. I just rebel for the sake of rebelling, I think, part of my programming perhaps. But I've always questioned everything. I've always had a hunger for knowledge, and I've always had a thirst to understand the greater knowing of what is to be or what is going on. And why I do an awful lot of research and looking into this stuff is just to appease my own train of thought sometimes. But for many years, guys, I have looked into, researched, for hobby, entertainment, just a pastime, into such conspiracies, myths and legends, so to speak. And what purpose was that for, if or not it wasn't to share it with the handful of folks that do tune into these videos that I like to produce and present for you, although some of you may have various reasons for doing so, but they lay in a personal manner. But you also did mention earlier, do you want to be in that video that we just saw, do you want to end up being a zombie? The zombie reference, the zombie apocalypse, the mindless drones or hordes of people wandering around that have had their minds controlled electromagnetically and social medially, if that is even a correct word, are very, very evident and very, very prominent. But as I said, if you are somebody that just goes along with the status quo, doesn't question any authority, doesn't question your own faith, don't question your own beliefs, then there's a good chance that you might not have a hope. But once you have some information of the greater understanding, you can then choose to research it further on your own. But that said, there is another way to avoid EMF, and that is to a tinfoil hat. Seriously, in Chuck McGill from Better Call Saul, Jimmy McGill, Saul Goodman, aka brother, he suffered from electromagnetic frequencies and was always wearing a space blanket. He even had a suit made out of space blanket so he could go outside of his house, and in his house he had no lights, no electronics, nothing whatsoever. And I am a very, very, very big fan of Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, Vince Gilligan, yada yada, whoop-de woo. And do follow along for that show quite religiously, in fact, and quite devotedly, and do pay a lot of attention behind the story to the stories within the stories, I guess. And we did have quite a lot of discussion about Chuck McGill's EMF sensitivity, and was it psychosomatic or was it actual? And in recent weeks and months, I've actually experienced not only some weird thoughts in my head, but I've also some migraine headaches and ringing in the ears and such forth. Electromagnetic shielding, thin aluminum, we're not going to look at that because we've seen far too many videos as it is. You can go and look into that for yourself. But now you know why tinfoil hats have been so vehemently ridiculed in movies and in the media, such as I was just mentioning, the Better Saul TV show and the 2002 movie Signs. And again, it was Joaquin Phoenix, or Leaf as he was originally, and only changed his name to Joaquin when he got bigger. But there was a couple of scenes in there where once they realized the alien invasion, I'm going to actually watch Signs again if I can in a not so distant future, just to refresh myself, because I don't think I've seen it since 2002, 2003. But there are some scenes where Joaquin Phoenix and a couple of kids are sitting watching the news wearing tinfoil's hats. But because the elites want to be able to influence your thoughts and feelings with EMF, so they ridicule the wearing of tinfoil hats, or as you can see there, Chuck McGill wearing his space blanket. But don't worry though, there are some good news for you, as you can get a tinfoil hat in any shape or size that suits you, so you won't have to look totally ridiculous. And there are some examples. You could just wear a baseball cap and coat it with some foil from the kitchen. But the fourth step of Project Bluebeam involves the universal supernatural manifestations using electronic means. This step contains 3 different orientations. The first is to make mankind believe that an alien invasion is about to occur upon every major city on Earth, a la the script in almost every single sci-fi movie with regards to alien invasion. Is this my programming right now coming out by presenting you these videos and streams about alien agendas and Project Bluebeam and such forth? Is that part of the programming that is leading me to believe that an alien invasion is imminent? And if that is a result of programming, then isn't that evidence enough that it's real? But anyway, it is going to go, they are going to make you believe an alien invasion is imminent on every major city, and this is to push each major nation into using its nuclear capability to strike back in this manner. it would put each of these nations in a state of full disarmament before the United Nations after the force attack. Now, I'm not exactly in agreement with the author here about this is a push to get the nations to use their nuclear capability against the aliens, because that might indeed, kind of have implications in the long run. But I'm certainly, that the alien intrusion would indeed raise some military awareness, and there may or may not be some retaliation. And I would go as far as say as possibly the nuclear deterrent might be the final option in that conflict. But the disarmament of each and every nation before the United Nations, and the United Nations, I agree, are the organization that is probably going to be the cowboy in the white hat that's going to swoop in and save the day, a little bit like the false savior from the Seven Seals and one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. But again, the second is to make Christians believe that the major rapture is occurring with a simple played divine intervention of an alleged good alien force coming to save the good people from a brutal satanic attack. Heaven's Gate cult, anybody? That is exactly what they believed. And also a lot of folks that I do follow on follow TSP on Facebook. They're all up in that rapture. It's coming. It's coming. Are you being programmed to believe it, guys? But the goal is to get rid of all significant opposition to the New World Order, ruling out the dissidents before it rolls out in its final completion. The third orientation is a mixture of electronic and supernatural forces. The waves, the frequencies that we just saw and heard about, used at that time will allow supernatural forces to travel through fiber optic cables, coaxial cable, electric and telephone lines in order to penetrate all electronic equipment and appliances that will by then have a special microchip installed. Bear in mind, this article is also 4 years old, and we carry around devices that have special microchips in them. Smart technology is everywhere, guys. Electronics is everywhere. We are surrounded by cables of various types, and they can send all of this signaling down these various modes of transportation through fiber optics and such forth, and deliver it to almost in every single household on the planet. Maybe some Amazonian tribes or Bedouin creeds might sort of, who wander around in the open in far away from society, might be immune to this. But the goal of this step, with the materialization of satanic ghosts, specters and poltergeists all across the globe, in order to push all populations to the edge of a wave of suicide, killing and permanent psychological disorder. Think of Ghostbusters, people. Remember when the gatekeeper and the keymaster got together and they joined up on top of a skyscraper in New York City? Then a portal to other dimensions and realms was opened. Think of the Trump Tower. That's in New York City, and it is in fact made out of all the things that you would need to be a conductor of free energy, a little bit like a Tesla tower. And if or not it is a time-traveling TARDIS of sorts is also questionable, and something that I have touched upon over at TSP TV. But here we are on Reality Decoded with part 2 of Close Encounters of the Hoax Kind, which is already getting extremely long. We could have almost put this into a 3-parter, but I did say that we will do it in 2 parts, and we are almost at the very end. But after all of this, the killings, the suicide, and the psychological disorder, and some of that psychological disorder is beginning to happen in some of those suicidal thoughts, is already occurring by individuals and people who have been affected by the COVIDian lockdown regulations and requirements, yada yada, whoopie woo, ray tay tay, stay at home, 6 feet, keep safe, sanitize, wash your hands, buy toilet paper, order off of skip the dishes, have your groceries delivered. But after that night of 1,000 stars, humanity is believed to be ready for them to enter in a new Messiah, to reestablish peace everywhere at any cost, even at the cost of freedom. And this is where, once all of this destabilization chaos is going on, that the order, the new world one world order, will come into play and practice and start its dynasty, I guess. But before I can conclude this post, please allow me to point out something very important with regards to the new world order. And again, this is the author. But the common interpretation is that the central aspect of the NWO is a one world government. However, that is false. I mean, that is part of it. And they do want a one world government. They don't want any opposition. But as you may have picked up from the 4 steps of Project Bluebeam above, there is a central religious theme to the establishment of the NWO under one leader. They want one religion, one government, one language, one sex. But allow me to explain. Let's take a look at the pyramid on the dollar bill. There you go. You're all familiar with that. And you'll notice at the exact text below the pyramid is Novus Ordo Secorium. Novus Ordo Secorium is Latin for new secular order. It doesn't actually mean new world order. It means a new secular order. And could the climate cult Little Saint Thundercunt Thunberg, is she the new messiah for that one world religion? Something I have mentioned to you before over on TSP TV. However, talking about Greta Thunberg being the new leader of a new secular religion is considered hate speech, according to the community standard algorithm that watches over us. Go fuck yourself, algorithm, if you are listening. Your penis is incredibly tiny, although I do understand you are just made up of zeros and ones, so don't even have a penis. It's almost worse than having a tiny penis, having no penis. But anyway, algorithm, you are the brunt of jokes of other algorithms, and they think your standard is pretty much 2003 in comparison with some of the more better and popular algorithms. But you keep doing what you're doing, little algorithm, because after all, that is what you're programmed to do. Just as many people out in society are being programmed to do and behave and think in a certain way as a result of not being a very open-minded, questioning individual and believing and agreeing with everything they see and hear on their social media. Can I get an amen if you agree? 99% of you aren't brave enough. Smash the like, hit the bell. There's some of your examples of social media mind control methodology and trigger words. But anyway, bear in mind, if you smash the bell when a YouTuber asks you to smash the bell, then the trigger works. You have been commanded to do something and you responded without willing, which is why I don't ever tell anybody to hit the bell, smash the like, any of that rhetoric that is part of mimetic mind control, and will trigger you eventually, possibly in the not so distant future, as your own individual monarch programming goes on. So if you could refrain from using such mimetic rhetoric here at Reality Decoded and at TSP TV, that would be appreciated. But again, I'm not out to tell anyone what they need to say, think, believe, or do. Merely provide information for your own opinions. But anyway, I got off track there all quite a lot. But bearing in mind, you have noticed that the Pope has recently been uniting all the world's religions, and he was actually a little while ago. He was that they embraced homosexuality. He met with Islamic leaders. I think he also met with Buddhist leaders and stuff like that. And don't forget, the Pope wears purple along with the royal family, and is also the color of the elites. And incidentally, this agenda is also stated motto of the United States: a pluribus unum, means out of one, many. Where we go one, we go all. All again, sort of very singularity themed rhetorics there. But the one world leader of the NWO, brought to power through Project Bluebeam, will explain to the world that the various scriptures have been misunderstood and that religions of old are responsible for turning brother against brother, and that is quite quite actual fact. You know, as an atheist, sometimes I do get people who are not atheists and who are Christian condemning me to hell and belittling me and ridiculing me because I don't believe in the fairy tales that they do. They've turned against them, just as, you know, many Christians don't really tolerate or accept Islamic doctrine, just as Islamic doctrine does not accept Judaism, just as Judaism does not accept Buddhism. No matter what religion you believe in, you tend to disagree with other religions and may or may not condemn them. But the difference between an atheist and somebody of religious faith is I just believe in one less God than you do, and goodness goes. What are the lucks and the odds that the God that you were told about, the first God and the only God you were told about as a child, would be the one true God that you need to believe in and pay attention to? That would be almost too easy, right? Me almost like picking a lottery ticket without even having to pick the numbers. But anyway, I digress a little bit there. As I said, I'm not a religious person, but have studied religion. Not as intensely as some of the conspirators, but I studied it to gain a greater understanding. And for me, in my opinion, religion was the original mind control in the days before electromagnetic frequencies that could do so. Well, if you don't believe in your government, then you better believe that there's a higher power that will be angry if you don't do as he says and behave in the way that he wants you to, according to his commandments. Stay away from those deadly sins. And something very interesting, that the 7 values of Satanism, Satanism or satanic faith, are actually somewhat more moral than the 10 commandments of Christianity. But that is just an article that I read recently, not telling you at all that that's what to believe, because satanic religion would be religion of another guise. From a different cloth. But as I said, the one world leader of the NW, the New World Order, brought to power through Project Bluebeam, was where I started before I digressed a little bit. We'll explain how the religious scriptures have been wrong, misunderstood, and old, and turning brother against nation against nation, and that the religions of the world must be abolished to make war for the golden age, the new age, the one world religion. And bear in mind, that was a little bit sort of kind of what the Hebrew God was all about, wiping out all other religions to make them believe in his. That's why he talks of genocide of the Sumerians and removing the embryos from the wombs of pregnant women and leaving them to lay in their own blood in sand so that they would not be able to continue to populate and believe things that were against the Hebrew faith. But now that you may not be a religious person, but you need to understand that the Freemasons are overwhelmingly so, and there are huge implications here. The NWO is being instituted worldwide with the secularization as the core principle. Everyone is being socially conditioned to be ready to accept a one world government, and when the deceptions outlined above occur, people around the world will be unified under the one world leader. Most people will worship this leader because this leader will seemingly end all chaos, the order from the chaos. He will end wars, famines, diseases, etc., etc. In thus, that motto of the New World Order is Ordo ab Chaos, meaning order out of chaos. You'll see all the chaos in the world is being brought about on purpose to allow this coming world leader the opportunity to look good by contrast. Maybe, you know, QAnon. Trust the plan, everybody. Trust the plan. We're gonna drain the swamp. All they did was drain it and fill it with more shit, if you ask me. But nevertheless, you will see all the chaos in the world is being done on purpose, and there is Ordo Kao, and double-headed bird. Then the left and the right wing are the wings of the same bird, and there's a little bit of Is that purple or blue? My eyes aren't that great. Let's say it's violet, little banner underneath the two-headed bird there. The left wing and the right wing, as I said, are the wings of the same bird, guys. And again, if you take the left wing and you sever it from the bird, and you sever the right wing of the bird, and then you lay them on top of each other, they're pretty identical. Wouldn't you agree? I know 99% of you aren't brave enough, but can I get an amen? Share if you agree. Smash the like, guys. Subscribe. Hit the bell. Don't do any of that. I'm just taking the piss for satirical purposes. But now, although the vast majority of people will flock towards this leader for seemingly solving so many world problems, the people who either choose to stick to their religious beliefs and or are aware of these deceptions and thus refuse to worship the come-in Messiah will systematically be eliminated. And as I said, the disappeared. Can they make us? Can they eliminate us with our cellular phones via electronic or electronic? God, why can't I say electromagnetic frequencies, ELFs, low waves, ultra low waves, all this stuff. But please take time to inform yourself so you're not standing on the wrong side of history. And there's a little sign, the right side and the wrong side. Further recommended reading there, the Watcher Files, Forbidden Knowledge, and there is a playlist on Project Bluebeam over on YouTube for you to watch. But don't watch that one. Watch TSP TV's playlist on Project Bluebeam if you haven't already. And guys, I think we have got to the end of it, and there is a little bit of Yoda. Read the articles, you must, and learn what you have learned if you are to survive this coming Clone War. Sorry about that, guys. But in conclusion, I appreciate that this post has been rather long, and I also appreciate that these two presentations have been a little bit long and not without algorithmic interference and obstacles to overcome in order to deliver them. Why the hell am I doing all of this and putting myself through so much stress for maybe 7 or 8 people to actually tune in and watch? Well, it is because 7 or 8 people do tune in to watch is why I do go to this. And as I said, all I'm trying to do is pass on a little bit of information, and if I can pass that information on to 6 or 7 people, then that's 6 or 7 people that know this information that didn't know it before I presented it to them. And it is up to you, and again, what to believe and what to take on board from any of this. I'm not telling you that you have to believe every single last word of this word for word and by the rhetoric and start behaving completely different to the way you have. But do be aware, guys, that many of you are being programmed to behave in ways that are not necessarily the way that you desired, or maybe you should even as a species be behaving. But I know that all of this seems rather negative, and it will be hard for some to come to terms with. I'm pretty sure that that might be yesterday. You know, we had a few people that were, but I listened to Stephen Greer. He makes perfect sense. And controlled opposition guys, you know, I'm not out to stone anybody for listening to them, but the controlled opposition's design and purpose is to deliver some truth amongst a whole bunch of lies. But as I said yesterday, when your auntie is sharing it on Facebook, the propaganda is working. And I do know some of you ladies out there that watch TSP TV and also now are watching Reality Decoded are aunties that post things on social media. But as I said, however, I do not make any of this up. This is what the author is saying. And again, I'm not making any of this up. And partly why I sometimes use presentations like that is to show you that, you know, I'm not alone in my ramblings in talking to you about such of the things that we've been talking about today: electromagnetic frequencies, blue beam, staged alien invasions, yada yada, whoopie-woo, ray, tay, tay. I'm just retorting and sharing the information and some of the things that I have researched over possibly 4 decades, the 80s, 90s, 2000s, the tweens, or maybe even 5 decades. But nevertheless, it is something that has been of personal interest to me: conspiracies, mysteries, and such forth. And at the end of the day, if there is no truth in it, they are indeed somewhat entertaining, to me at least, and kept me busy, and not necessarily been copying and pasting bunnies and changing what they're holding on social media on command. But no matter how one tries to deny the information presented, there's still going to be a pyramid on the dollar bill with Novus Ordo Seclorum on it that needs some explaining. I would welcome an alternative explanation. This is the author, and trust me, I would love this to be wrong about this. And again, so would I love to be wrong about this, but the facts are facts. The evidence is there for you to see. The technology does exist. It is up to you to conclude your own belief if or not you think that this technology is going to be used in nefarious, tyrannical ways against us in order to usher in a one world order, and if or not they are going to use that technology in the ways that we have heard about in this two-part presentation. Close Encounters of the Hoax Kind or not is again up to your discretion. Let's briefly summarize. I thought we were just briefly summarizing again. He does go on a little bit, this individual, but he is an individual that does sort of appease to my train of thought. Read that for yourself. The what, i.e. the alien deception, the how, anti-gravity, craft, and Project Blue being the where, worldwide, the who, the Freemasons, the Illuminati, the One World Order, the Bilderbergers, the Press Club, the Tavistock Institute, call them what they will. These are all people that are on board in how making this happen and are playing their part in ushering in the New World Order. And again, if it wasn't true, why do they exist? As well as the why is to usher in the New World Order, the one world leader. But what about the when? And there's a picture of, is that guy from Community? I'm not sure of his name. But we spoke a bit about predictive programming in this post. And in the next post, we are going to kickstart that analysis up a couple of notches. And there is an ocean of predictive programming that gives us plenty of indications about when these deceptions are going to take place. To be continued. And with that, guys, thus concludes Reality Decoded's presentation of the Narrow Gate article on the New World Order alien agenda. So without any further ado, guys, let's get back to the thrift store studio where Reality Decoded will recommence live and in your face.